We'll go ahead and get started today. Welcome everyone to CTC's webinar. This one is on infrastructure, and it is going to be talking about Coordinate Geometry Editor. My name is Scott Mizek. I'm an application engineer here, and I deal on the infrastructure side. We are recording this. It will be put up on our YouTube page, so if you have to bail early or you just didn't catch something, go ahead to our YouTube page, take a look at it, and it'll be there for your review. So again, today, Coordinate Geometry Editor, it's something more for the surveyors, less for the engineers, but you know what, surveyors are people too. So I thought I'd do one on Coordinate Geometry Editor. Some of the topics today we're going to be talking about inside the Coordinate Geometry Editor is actually selecting the POB, the point of beginning, assigning the POB also to be the closure. That comes out great when you're dealing with reports. We'll look at adding lines, pretty simple, but then we'll be looking at adding curves into the editor, whether it be a radial, a chord, or a tangential or tangent curve, and we'll look at how to do that. We'll look at some of the tips and tricks, what works, what doesn't work. From there, we'll look at creating an error report, so we'll be able to check the closure on our closed polygon. And then we'll look at importing polylines and Koga points. So I may be comping out a boundary, but it doesn't do me any good unless I can actually get points that I can actually then give out to the surveyors to say, hey, go look for these property irons. Or maybe I'm building my boundary and this is for preliminary, and now I want to change the overall length of it because we're going to add additional right of way. By importing the polylines, it allows me to drop them in, and then if I make changes, I just drop them in again, but it obviously will do my line work for me. So to establish a point of beginning when it comes to Coordinate Geometry Editor, the first thing you can do is you can just pick a Koga point or a survey point, and it will select it from there. Or if you know the northing easting, you can just plug it in right there. At that point, maybe you know the northing easting of the section corner, you just didn't create a Koga point or a survey point for that section corner, and then you work your way into the actual POB. And once you've established the POB, the point of beginning, it will ask you, use point of beginning as the point of closure to create a closed traverse loop. Say yes or no. Obviously, if you're working your way in from a section corner to the POB, the answer is going to be no. But if you're doing the outer boundary of a subdivision, the answer is going to be yes, because we want that to close or be able to come really close to closing so we can get an error report. So setting up the POB, pretty simple, and then it'll ask you once it's been determined, do you want this to be the closure also? Lines and curves, pretty straightforward. Like I said, on the side type, you'll have lines, and then you'll have the three types of curves, and then you also have a side shot. But you'll plug in the northing, or the bearing, northwest, northeast, and then the bearing itself, 00.0004, and then a distance, and it will draw that line. So my first line is northwesterly 4 seconds, and it came in here northwesterly 4 seconds for a distance of 100 feet. And then my second line is northeasterly 89, 59, 56, 100 feet. And that's my second line, that horizontal line right here. When you're using Coordinate Geometry Editor, your first side, number 1 right here, has to be a line. So if you're dealing with a property that is strictly all curves, it's not really going to work for you unless you put in a small piece of tangent and then work backwards. Hey, go out 10 feet and then come back 10 feet and then put your curves in. And then when you draw your polylines or you drop your polylines in, you just delete those 2 out. So tip 1, your first segment always has to be of line type. You can't start with the curve. When looking at curves, the first one I'll look at is a chord curve. If I choose chord curve in here, The first angle and direction is actually the chord bearing. Second one is the chord length, and then the radius is the radius of the curve. So the angle direction, knowing the chord bearing, is going to come in to play if you're choosing chord. You can't just take the delta. You'll need the chord bearing also. And so as I put this in, southeasterly 30, 51, 48, distance of 76.97, radius 75 feet, it came in and built that for me. Now if I wanted that to have a chord on the other side, or the curve go to the other side, I would put in a radius of minus 75 feet. Radial curves, pretty straightforward. A radial curve, I did the same curve, I just, instead of being at chord base, I said radial base. And the first thing is the bearing from the back sight, angle direction. So I took my second line here, and it came out to here. So what I said was radial, go 180 degrees from my back sight. So I had my bearing based off of my back sight, so I went 180 degrees, which is basically now going backwards. And I said go backwards 75 feet for my radius, and then my angle of deflection, 61.4340. That gave me this right in here. Again, if I wanted the radius to go the opposite direction, I put in a negative sign to change the direction. A tip on this, and my screen cap actually doesn't show that. This angle of 61.4343, that actually is in decimal degree, because in this case I didn't put the D, the foot mark, and then the inch mark. By default, if you just plug in 61.4340, your angle is going to be decimal degree. If I want this to be degrees, minutes, seconds, I need to put in 61D, 43 foot mark, 40 inch mark to get that to read decimal degree. Most of my plans I've always read, it was in degrees, minutes, seconds. There's a few out there that actually read decimal degree, but for the most part you're going to see degrees, minutes, seconds. So I need to make sure that when I plug in my angle, it is in decimal degree or degrees, minutes, seconds. I need to know which one it is to make sure that I put it in properly. It's always great because, as we know, the minutes and seconds can't be greater than 60. If it is, then we automatically know that that value is decimal degree. But just for that case, like I said, make sure that your angle, you put in the D, the foot mark, the inch mark to declare it as degrees, minutes, seconds. So again, the radial, it's based off of the back sight. So I start here, I look at my back sight, I turn 180 degrees and go 75 feet. Tangent curves, tangent in, tangent out, well, at least tangent into the curve. You have two things, radius, 75 feet, and an angle of 90. I'm going to put a radius in there of 75 feet, and I'm going to turn 90 degrees in there. The same thing with the angle. It is decimal degree. If you need degrees, minutes, seconds, you need to put in the D, the foot mark, the inch mark. Again, enter a negative value for the radius to reverse the direction. So if I wanted my radius to be on the northwest side of my line, I would put in a minus 75 feet. So my final product, if you take a quick peek at one of the support drawings, the sample drawings for exercises, this is one of the subdivisions in here. And I picked lot 5 because it's got 2 chords in it. I'm like, hey, that works great. So I'm going to start down at my POB, which for me was the southwest corner, and I'm going to work my way around clockwise. And from there, by plugging everything in, I end up closing. Again, I put this in, and this right here is actually decimal degree instead of degrees, minutes, seconds. So when I did this, I actually had an error report of about 38 hundredths, which almost 4/10. Yeah, that's a pretty bad air report. Seeing that, I have the ability to, oh, let's go back and change that. And I can come back and make minor changes to this. And that's what we're going to talk about with tips right now. When you're updating a leg of a traverse, so if I say back, in here, if I want to come in and change my line to be 125 feet instead of 100 feet, I can just quickly change that 100 and make it 125. And then everything after that will automatically update. It's dynamic. The one thing that you don't want to do is segment 3 or leg 3, I have as a radial curve. Once I've built that, if I try to change that to be a chord or a tangent curve, it's going to give you problems. You're going to see results that you don't want. So if I need to change that from a radial curve to a chord curve, it is better to delete out the radial and then add a new segment in and then put it in the proper spot. Rearrange it. So again, rearranging them, fine. Changing values, fine. But if you change the type, you're going to run into issues. So I highly recommend, again, if I had radial and I needed it to be chord, delete it, add a new segment in, add a new leg in, and then make those proper values. Save your traverse. Exiting out of the coordinate geometry editor will actually erase all your input. And so if I close out of this, whoops, and open it back up, everything in that legs will be gone. So what I need to do is I actually need to come in and I need to say save. And what this will do is it will save a TRV file, and at any point I can say open, and I can open up a TRV file. So if you are working and you may be doing an entire block in a subdivision and it might have 30 legs, well, you're only 15 legs in and you get a phone call or you get called into a meeting, save it, because if you accidentally close it out, you're going to have to start over. So saving it and then opening it up, perfect way to go. And then entering your data. When you're entering a line data, in 2015 Civil 3D, you actually still have to plug in the D, the foot mark, and the inch mark. 2015 will, for even a line, will recognize it as decimal degree. And so in 2015 or earlier, you need to put in the D, the foot, and the inch mark. In 2016, I can just put in north 0.0004 east, and it will know it's decimal degree. Or not decimal degree, degrees, minutes, seconds. So for the line types, again, 2015 or earlier, it recognizes it as decimal degree. 2016, if you put the northeasterly, the N at the beginning, the E at the end, it will recognize it as degrees, minutes, seconds. But even in 2016, the delta angle defaults to decimal degree in both versions, so 2016 and earlier. So when I do my example here, I will actually make sure that I put in the D, the foot mark, and the inch mark. So those are 3 big tips that I can tell you about the coordinate geometry editor that will make your life easier. Definitely the replace or delete and replace a curve type, save your traverse, and then know what is defaulted to decimal degree and know what is allowed, and it will accept it automatically as degrees, minutes, seconds. So after that's all done, I can run an air report. So the icon right up there with the piece of paper with the green check mark, and I had an air report for a subdivision up here in Minnesota in Scott County, and it closed within 5 thousandths. You could see the traverse length. We're looking at 21,400 feet, and I missed within 5 thousandths. I call that pretty darn good. It shows you the direction of the air in the easting and the northing. It gives you the distance of all the legs, and then all the data right in here. Whoops. And then if that's good, I come to the next icon, and what that will do is that will actually create polylines for all these sides, which they were all linear, no curves in there, so that made it pretty simple. But that would put a polyline in for all 8 legs, and then if I want, I can hit the next icon in there, and that will actually drop in a Kogo point at the end of each leg, giving me the ability to export it out as a text file, CSV file, and then give it to my surveyors, and then they can point stake. From there, if I had those polylines, I could go, then in Civil 3D, actually say create parcel from object, and then pick my polylines, and I would have now parcel data in terms of Civil 3D language. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the software really quick, and I'm going to reproduce that lot really quick. So I'm going to go to my Survey tab, Coordinate Geometry Editor. Uh-oh, I had it on another screen. Let's see if I can get it back. That. Now let's try to open it up and see if it will allow it to find it. I knew I forgot to test something really quick. Use new hardware. Well, maybe we won't get a demo because my coordinate geometry editor is on my other screen, so I won't be able to get to it. Yep. I'm not going to be able to get to it unless I actually logged in, went back to my desk, moved it over, and we're not going to worry about that right now. So I guess trust me on the demo that if you plug those in the right order, things will work. What I'll do is I'll quickly talk about going through there. The C2 I actually put in as a radial curve. So I plugged in 180 degrees because I was coming straight out, and then the 75-foot radius, and I put in the delta of 61 degrees, 43 minutes, 40 seconds to get me to here. And then from here I went in and I did a chord bearing. That chord bearing, that main line is going to be based off of the line drawn from here to here, F8. Come on. There. So when I put in the chord, I need to know what this chord bearing is. Well, knowing the length and the delta, I can then divide it by 2 to get the half delta, and then knowing the bearing in here, that will give me the new one. So I ended up plugging in for my chord bearing for this C1 line of 30 degrees, 51 minutes, 48 seconds to plug that in. I could have come in radially, and that would have taken off my backside, which from here to here, so I would have wanted to come out 90 degrees, which would have put me here, and then, well, 20 feet, so here, and then there. So I could have put it in as a radial also, but I chose chord, so I plugged in the 30, 51, 48, distance 20.52. Oh, it should have been 5.5. And then a 20-foot radius would have actually put it as a curve to the southwest. I had to put in a negative radius of 20 feet to get it through here. And then the L1 line was just 16.33 feet southeasterly 1 second. And then I came back through northeasterly 89, 59, 53 to close it out. So that was a verbal demo of what I did. Note that if you're doing radial, the chord or the distance to the backside is a straight line, not along your curve. But you can do chord, you can do bearing. Tangent would have been, probably could have worked on here also. Tangent of the length, 21.55 with a radius of 20 feet, and it would have determined that for you also. Whoops. So I'll jump back into my PowerPoint to wrap things up. Questions? I will try to see. Let me try to get my questions back out. They collapsed. There we go. So if we have any questions, feel free to type them in right now and I will answer them. While I'm waiting for questions to come in, if any do come in, I will just go ahead and jump to my closing comments. Our upcoming events, we have another webinar on July 26th, so 2 weeks from yesterday. July 12-15 again, best practices with pipe networks, data shortcuts in Civil 3D. I believe JT is the one doing that one. We have other webinars planned, we don't have them set in stone on what dates yet, so that's the only webinar that I have planned for you right now. But some upcoming events we have is a Civil 3D user group workshop hosted by the ACEC of Wisconsin. It's September 28th at the Wisconsin Dells. So if you want to go ahead and go to the website www.acecwi.org and look at it. And it's going to be the first year of the workshop, but looking at the classes, there's a lot of good classes to attend. Another event that's coming up is November 15th through the 17th. Yeah, it seems like it's a long way away, but it's Autodesk University. It's at the Venetian again in Las Vegas. They did move it up this year instead of being the week after Thanksgiving. They actually put it beforehand. Why, I don't know, but CTC will be teaching 2 classes at this Autodesk event. So this is at least 6 years in a row that I know of that CTC, CAD Technology Center, has been teaching a class at Autodesk University. So those are a couple other events. Like I said, the group workshop on the 28th of September, Autodesk University. There is a Civil 3D user group meeting this upcoming Tuesday, the 19th, in St. Paul. If you want to go to that, go ahead and just send us a question. Go to, I think you can get to it through our website, cadtechnologycenter.com, for the location. With that, I thank everyone for attending. There's our contact information, cadtechnologycenter.com. If you have any questions, email us, support@cadtechnologycenter.com, our 800 number, and then our handles for YouTube and Twitter. I didn't see any questions come in, so it looks like I'm going to get you out of here about 5 minutes early. Thanks for attending. Hope to see everyone on July 26th.